This is CBC Here and Now.
One in 4 residents don't have a family doctor. We'll hear more about what that means to patients.
Well, what it means is that those people show up late. They show up in the emergency room because they've had a stroke, because nobody knew about their high blood pressure.
Coming up on Here and Now.
This piece of ice and such as others represents 50% of the business.
You sometimes have to make decisions about what actually goes in that salad now. Maybe you have to take out some of the premium items.
From fuel to food, tourist operators in the province said they're paying a steep price. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan. Those stories in just a few minutes, but first, what will become of the iconic Basilica? Prospective buyers have until tomorrow to make their bid on that church and many other Roman Catholic properties. There are 25 in total. The tender closes on those properties in just a few hours. The Archdiocese is selling its assets to pay millions of dollars in damages to survivors of sexual abuse at the Mount Cashel Orphanage. Parishioners in more than a dozen parishes will soon find out what happens to their church.
I don't understand. This house, this church hall was built by the parishioners in this parish, and the Archdiocese of St. John's can just come in here and take it and sell it.
Well, we've got a lot more on this story. With just a few hours left before the bidding process closes, our Patrick Butler speaks with those most affected by these sales, abuse victims and parish parishioners. The conversation continues in Here Now in about 25 minutes. Well, in other news, a man is dead after an early morning car crash in St. Anthony. Police say he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. According to the RCMP, the 38-year-old man was the only person in the SUV after it crossed over a sidewalk and ended up overturned in a ditch. Police say the driver was ejected from the vehicle and died at the hospital in St. Anthony. That crash is still under investigation. Well, you might say it's a sign of the times. Day 2 of the Energy Conference in St. John's had a special focus on renewables today, with the potential for green hydrogen projects in this province stealing the spotlight away from oil and gas. As Terry Roberts reports, one major player in this sector is eyeing a partnership with the Port of Argentia.
This man came to St. John's today with a bold message that this province can become a global export leader in renewable energy, such as green hydrogen.
We think Newfoundland is a very logical and very exciting place to be developing these projects to service this international demand for these fuels.
He's in charge of Pattern Energy's operations in Canada. The company is a major player in renewable energy, producing more than 6 gigawatts globally. Davis is a Newfoundlander, an expatriate who's keen to tap into what some say is North America's leading wind resource. So they have big plans for this place, the Port of Argentia.
Today, I guess we've taken the next step in Argentia transitioning in the green economy.
Pattern has signed an option to lease up to 4,000 acres of undeveloped land at the former U.S. naval base in a forested area called the Backlands, and will now begin conducting a study to determine whether it's feasible to develop a wind energy farm and use that power to create green hydrogen for export to European markets.
Argentia has all of the aspects that are needed. We have the wind, we have the lands, we have the access to the international shipping lanes. So all of those things are coming in line now.
Pattern wants to use wind turbines like these in St. Lawrence as an energy source to make hydrogen. It's an emerging technology with a process that will require an abundance of fresh water, land, and of course, a stiff breeze. Experts like this man say Newfoundland has great potential, and developers are taking notice.
All those key elements are here for Newfoundland and Labrador to become a significant hydrogen producer in the future, and not only for domestic use but also for export, eastern seaboard of the United States and Europe.
75% of the world's energy supply comes from combustible fuels, and that's expected to be the case for decades to come. But only one of those fuels emits 0 greenhouse gases: hydrogen made from renewable energy, such as wind or hydropower.
So everybody's going, we're not going to get away from combustible fuels. What can we have? Hydrogen is the option.
Pattern Energy is just the latest company to show an interest in this province, lured by the government's recent decision to end a moratorium on wind energy projects and a scramble by European economies to end their dependency on Russian natural gas.
We're hearing from the Europeans that this demand is real and it's coming, and by 2030, they want to be utilizing 20 million tons of hydrogen a year. So this is a project we need to act on quickly and deploy a lot of resources to get this constructed, as soon as possible.
The size and scale of the proposed project will be determined in the coming months, and Pattern Energy expects to have enough information about whether it will invest in a full-scale project in about a year's time. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's June 1st today and the start of meteorological summer, although it certainly doesn't feel like it out there in most areas across the province, thanks to an area of low pressure just offshore right now, but a large area of low pressure, that cloud cover, very extensive across the province, and we're seeing lots of showers, less numerous than they were this morning, but definitely going to see that on the increase as we head through the evening hours tonight and into the morning hours. But taking a live look outside, you can't really see a whole lot. That's supposed to be the harbor there. Current conditions sitting at about 4 degrees right now in St. John's. Not a whole lot of wind to speak of. We haven't really been talking about wind, but if we take a look at what's going on across the province, there are some areas that are seeing some windy conditions right now. Blanc-Sablon, even the Wreck House area at about 56 kilometers per hour. You factor in the gusts, it's more like 65 kilometers per hour in the Wreck House area. Now, we are going to see the winds increase as we head through the night tonight. That is going to be accompanied by lots of rain as well. Some areas seeing between 60 and 70 kilometer per hour wind gusts. We'll get into the full forecast when I come back.
I'll leave the door open. If he wants to go, I'll leave and he can go. But if he wants to stay, he can stay.
It's a cute story you won't want to miss a little later in the show. A woman on the West Coast has a wild rescue story. Meet the squirrel that's stolen her and her dog's heart. There's a lot of hope that this will be the year that marks the rebound for the tourism industry, with come-home year promotions and events planned right across the province. But the rising price of gas is really getting in the way of tour operators' bottom line. Our Chris O'Neill-Yates headed to Twillingate, where businesses are struggling to keep up.
After a no-show last year, icebergs are beguiling visitors to Twillingate.
So we're from Australia, and this is almost as far away as you can get, and to see an iceberg, we're pretty lucky.
Not so lucky, though, with gas prices surging to over $2 a litre since they booked their travel.
Been trying to keep the tank full when it hits about half. So kind of lulled into a false sense of security that it's not costing that much.
This piece of ice and such as others represents 50% of the business.
Tour operator Barry Rogers now pays 3 times what he did to fill his boat in 2019.
Absolutely. I mean, we just can't put that, because of the world crisis back to our guests.
Rogers did increase ticket prices slightly, but to save fuel, he's reducing boat speed and cutting the number of trips.
I mean, if we've got, say, low numbers on the 4 o'clock, we ask our guests to move back to the 1.
And it's not just boat tour operators that are feeling the pinch this year. It's also having an impact on other people who rely on tourism to make a living.
So everything is more costly than ever.
Food costs have increased by at least 30% for Deborah Borden's restaurant. She's increased menu prices, but not by that much.
So you sometimes have to make decisions about what actually goes in that salad now. Maybe you have to take out some of the premium items so that you can keep price point to where it's at least acceptable.
She worries that people may balk at driving because of the high cost of gas.
They say Newfoundland is a very expensive destination. Yes, absolutely. But Twillingate, within Newfoundland, is also an even more expensive destination.
A delicate balance to keep business afloat until the next iceberg season. Chris O'Neill-Yates, CBC News, Twillingate, Newfoundland.
The province's medical association says the doctor shortage is getting worse. A new poll commissioned by the association found a growing number of people, almost 1 in 4 residents, don't have a family doctor. The province says it's taking steps to improve primary care, but as Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports, the NLMA says it's not moving fast enough.
Polling in 2014 found that about 10% of people in Newfoundland and Labrador don't have a family doctor. A new narrative research poll released by the NLMA today found that number has jumped to 24%, about 125,000 people who are without access to care like this. It's especially bad in central Newfoundland, where up to 37% of people are without a family doctor.
We really didn't pay attention to the crisis, which we knew was going to happen, and that we've been calling on government for years and years and years, that this was in the offing, the writing was on the wall, and nothing happened.
Dr. Susan McDonald says it's having a real impact on patients. McDonald specializes in palliative care, helping people at the end of their lives. She says lack of access to primary care is actually shortening lives.
Already I'm seeing in my clinic people who weren't picked up early enough with their condition, and now, because of what I do, they will not be cured of it, and I have to help manage that.
The NLMA says the province's efforts, its focus on recruiting, the Patient Connect line, and collaborative teen clinics haven't worked to reverse the problem.
I think, to be fair, some of those measures have not had time. We concluded negotiations with the Medical Association in January. Since then, the tone has changed and become much more collaborative, and we've been working very much on solutions. We have the Family Practice Renewal Committee that met literally 2 days ago.
The provincial government says it's working on the problem, but the Medical Association says it's a problem with deep roots, and it fears it may go on for some time before it improves. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Meanwhile, today the official opposition says the problem is only going to get worse, but the Premier says the doctor shortage isn't unique to Newfoundland and Labrador.
Doing our best to address it in the face of a national crisis. Is there still work to do? Of course there's work to do. There's always going to be work to do, but we're open to creative suggestions. We're willing to listen. We're willing to work with them to ensure that we're moving in the best path forward. And I think evidence of that is some immediate things that we've done, like a new Assistant Deputy Minister for Health Recruitment and Retention. That was one of the recommendations that came out of a conversation with the College of Family Physicians here in the province. So, we listened, we heard, and we acted, and we'll continue to do so.
A quarter of our population doesn't have access to a family doctor. What does that tell you about where our healthcare system is going to go? The pressure then is going to be on our emergency rooms. We already know that there's 8 closed in Newfoundland and Labrador that were opened, 2 years ago. What does this tell you about the overworking then, the other doctors and health professional nurses and LPNs and pharmacists and everybody else in our healthcare system? So if we don't address this is going to get bigger and worse for the people of this province, and healthcare, by far, is the one thing that we've heard the most from people in Newfoundland and Labrador that's in a total crisis, and if we don't address it immediately, it's only going to get worse. It's going to cost the economy, but more importantly, it's going to cost the quality of life to people in this province, and that we can't live with.
Well, today, a $20 million 5-year action plan was revealed to reduce the number of suicides in the province. The health minister says suicide numbers have skyrocketed since the 1980s, up more than 230%. Many of those people, he says, were dealing with mental health or substance abuse issues. The plan focuses on reducing stigma and empowering communities. Welcome news for Labrador, where communities have above-average rates of suicide.
When the recommendations were made, I was very pleased to see that there was going to be land-based programming, and I think for me that kind of flagged it and said, okay, they heard that. And I was like, I'm surprised, but then I was like, okay, if this is something that you're saying that you're going to do and you're going to put money towards, then we're going to partner, and we're going to do what we can as community and as partners to make this real for our communities as well.
In other health news, the number of COVID hospitalizations in the province has dropped down to the lowest level we've seen in nearly 5 months. There are 5 people in hospital, 2 of those in the ICU. In the past week, in this province, there were 2 more deaths. May was actually the least deadly month of the pandemic, with 18 deaths total. It's the first time this year the number of deaths hasn't increased month to month. Well, an animal lover in Corner Brook has taken in an unlikely guest. Living in her home, along with her 4 dogs and 2 cats, is a rescued baby squirrel, one that's befriended her border collie. But as Troy Turner reports, Alicia Rideout never intended to rescue the little critter.
But I guess I'm Mom. I don't know. Where he opened his eyes and he saw me, it's either me or Berlin. One of us is Mom.
A squirrel named Alvin. Yes, after the famous chipmunk. Alicia Rideout and her border collie Berlin were hiking a trail in Green Bay when the dog found an ailing infant. They left him in the woods, expecting his mother to care for him.
And I knew you're not supposed to just take a random wild animal home, so I did leave him the first night alone. But when I came back with a bucket and a blanket to put him in, I was like, you're coming home with me. So he did.
That's when the bond with Berlin really shone.
When I first brought Alvin home and I wanted to show everybody, like, oh, I have this squirrel here. When anyone would get close to Alvin, Berlin would just get right on top of him, like, no, you're not getting any closer. He's very protective of Alvin.
The two cuddle all the time, but Alvin also likes to run around. When it's bedtime, he settles down with Rideout.
We'll go to bed around 12 and he'll wake me up around 7. And he usually wakes me up by chewing on my eyelashes.
Alvin feeds on kitten formula and small nutrient capsules.
But once he gets out of that cage, he's go, go, go. Like that.
He's been to the vet and is scheduled for deworming. However, Rideout and the Provincial Wildlife Department don't recommend people take wild animals home.
A lot of people say, you know, the squirrel sleeps in bed on your pillow. You can't release him in the wild. And then some people say he's so used to your dog, he's not going to be afraid of predators. So he might get eaten in the wild. And those things do worry me about releasing him back, because I am supposed to release him back after 12 weeks old. But the thought is in my mind, maybe he'll want to stay. Maybe he won't want to leave. So I'll leave the door open. If he wants to go, you know, I'll leave and he can go. But if he wants to stay, he can stay.
Rideout says she's called the Department of Wildlife looking for any advice they can give. In the meantime, she says she'll continue to care for Alvin and hopes to introduce her newfound pet to solid foods next. Troy Turner, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Here's Newhook. The pass across.
Well, St. John's Alex Newhook helped the Colorado Avalanche get on the scoreboard last night, assisting on his team's first goal of the game. The Avs won the first game of the Western Conference Finals, beating the Edmonton Oilers 8-6 in Colorado. Newhook hasn't seen much action, with last night's contest being only the third game in the 2022 playoffs, but he made the most of his ice time. The two teams are back in action on Thursday.
Hello, we're Ennis Sisters grade 4 class at Nicole Holy Family Paradise. Ashley's weather forecast is coming up next.
Nice job, grade 4s. Yes, weather's coming up. It's got a lot of rain in the forecast over the next 12 hours. Some clearing though as we get to the weekend. We'll have all the details coming up.
Update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Absolute final deadline is midnight, Friday, June 3rd. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, Ashley, before we get to the weather, we were both doing a little bit of reading today. We were guests at Holy Family Elementary School in Paradise. And in fact, you guys just saw some of the folks that I was reading to, Madame Anderson's grade 4 class, doing a little weather promo for you there. You know, put them to work. You can't start them too young.
No, that's right. Yeah, it was a nice day to stay inside though today. Cool temperatures, lots of rain. Not very nice out there.
Oh yeah, no, it was enough just running from my car into the school. So a good day to be inside reading a nice book.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, temperatures much cooler today. Let's take a look at those temperatures across the board. Sitting around 5 degrees was the daytime high in St. John's, 8 in Cape Race. The warmest temperatures were actually for Burgeo. 12 degrees stands out there definitely across the island, and 13 in Lab City, where the rest of us were fairly chilly today. Now taking a look at what's happening, we've got a large area of low pressure and some showers that were associated with it. The showers definitely less numerous than they were earlier today, but they will be on the increase as we head through the night tonight. The reason why we saw the nicer temperatures for Lab City was the lack of cloud cover this afternoon. Same thing around Burgeo. Now that cloud cover has since moved in, but we definitely saw a pretty lovely afternoon. And here's a look at those showers. Now, the edge of some of the heavier rain is just offshore. It'll start to come into the way of the radar, and we'll be able to see that over the next couple of hours. But that is the story as we head through the night tonight. With those temperatures staying fairly chilly as well. So taking a look at the visibility, you can see really all that fog along the coast, down to about 200 meters in St. John's right now, 2.4 kilometers visibility in Gander. But we're expecting the fog to continue as we head through the night tonight, especially as we start to see some of that heavier rain move in. Now, as far as the temperatures go right now, pretty chilly still, 4 degrees in St. John's, really not seeing a whole lot of movement in those temperatures, and we really won't as we head through the next couple of days either. Deer Lake sitting at 8 degrees right now, down to 9 in Burgeo, but still a beautiful evening in Lab City right now at 13 degrees, getting out and enjoying some of that sunshine out there as well. But we did see some wet flakes. Some of you did anyway earlier today. But as we head through the night tonight, that risk of the snow should end pretty much across the board. But we will see those heavier showers roll through tonight. They're going to move in from the north and then continue to work their way further south as we head through the overnight. Along coastal areas of Labrador, you'll see that as you get into the early morning hours. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, this will be accompanied by some pretty gusty winds as well. We could see exposed areas seeing those gusts around 60 or even 70 kilometers per hour. So it isn't going to be very nice, especially tomorrow morning. We're looking at about 20 to 30, maybe even 20 to 40 millimeters falling in some pockets along the northeast coast, the heaviest being towards Bonavista North and the Bay of Exploits. Generally looking at between 10 to 20 millimeters for the Avalon, and then less as you head further south by the morning hours anyway. So temperatures tonight expected to be another chilly one, but again, not moving too much, a degree or two really, between 2 and 4, even 6 degrees through the overnight, but the winds ramping up on the west coast by the time you get into the morning hours. You'll also note a wind shift very briefly for eastern areas of the island as well. Labrador, still looking at that chance of a few flurries for coastal areas, but that should end overnight tonight. Your winds will be fairly gusty as well, between 40 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour. So taking a look at the future tracker tomorrow, the good news is this rain will end very quickly into the afternoon. You're still going to see the cloud cover stick around along with some drizzle and likely some fog patches towards the coast as well. Still looking at that hanging on a little bit longer for the west coast and then northern peninsula as well. Same thing for southeastern Labrador. You're not going to see those showers and rain end really until we get into the evening hours. But overall, generally cloudy skies are going to stick around, thanks to that area of low pressure through the day as well. And really this will continue right into Friday morning. Temperatures tomorrow expected to be very similar today, 6 to 9 degrees. Those winds will shift back to northerlies and be pretty breezy at times, between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour. Similar temperatures as you head towards central. Harbour Breton, again, your morning will be very breezy, between 60 and 70 kilometer per hour winds, but they'll end as the day goes on as well. As you head towards the west coast, generally cloudy. Extreme southwest, you may see a few peaks of sun tomorrow, but your temperature will stay quite chilly as well. 3 to 6 degrees for the northern peninsula, same thing for southeastern Labrador. And then again, nicest weather. Lab City, you're going to take that one again tomorrow, 13 degrees. And really, your temperatures are going to warm up even more as we get into the weekend. You're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that forecast. I'll tell you all about it coming up.
The church is responsible for this, then the church has to.
The survivor still remembers the brutality of the Christian Brothers. The Catholic Church is paying for that painful past. The CBC's Patrick Butler brings us a special report just ahead. Well, people have just a few hours to submit their bids for 25 Catholic properties in St. John's, including the iconic Basilica of St. John the Baptist. The Archdiocese of St. John's has launched a sale of its properties to help pay millions in damages to survivors of sexual abuse at Mount Cashel. As Here Now's Patrick Butler explains, parishioners in a dozen parishes will soon find out just what happens to their church.
On Easter Sunday, on what should have been the holiest day in the Christian calendar, a heaviness hung over this church in Portugal Cove. Catholics in this community, like dozens of others in eastern Newfoundland, could soon lose the churches their families built.
We don't know really what's going to happen.
The Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation of St. John's has a colossal bill to pay, damages to sexual abuse survivors that could reach $50 million. To pay that bill, the Archdiocese has already seized the savings of churches like this one. Now it's launched a fire sale of its properties.
I don't understand. This house, this church hall, was built by the parishioners in this parish, and the Archdiocese of St. John's can just come in here and take it and sell it? I don't understand it at all.
It's an incomprehensible situation for many Catholics, buying a church you thought you already owned. But the legal explanation is simple. In 2019, in a historic judgment, the Newfoundland and Labrador Court of Appeal ruled that the Archdiocese was responsible for sexual abuse committed against 4 men, then boys, in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. The decision opened the door to more than 100 other claims. Tortured at Mount Cashel in the 50s, this man waited most of his life for the Archdiocese to be held accountable. A court ruling shields his identity. 7 decades later, he still remembers the brutality of the Christian brothers.
My memory of that will never go away, never go away. It's imprinted. I don't like hurting people, unless their intent is to hurt me, but I wouldn't want to do that. But the church is responsible for this, then the church has to pay.
When the Mount Cashel scandal broke in 1989, many Catholics refused to believe the story. Others, like this former Radio-Canada journalist, stopped going to Mass.
I lived for a time next to the orphanage, and I actually envied the little orphans because they had a pool at the orphanage. And I would say to myself, they're so lucky. When the news broke, it was like we'd all been violated.
Just remember.
A commission of inquiry would reveal the extent of the Christian brothers' sexual crimes, but also the scale of the cover-up, by the church, but also senior officials in government and police. Brother after brother was convicted in the 1990s, but 3 decades later, the battle for damages continues.
It's very important. The clients have been waiting a long time, and a number of them have died along the way, and which is very troubling.
Liquidating the assets of the Archdiocese, including the towering Basilica of St. John the Baptist, is the final surreal chapter of the interminable court process. The Basilica's tender documents read like a fictitious real estate ad. The complex has a newly installed mini-split system, but also 17 bells and a crypt with the remains of at least 2 bishops.
For me, it's intensely disturbing. I may not be a Catholic, but this is my culture, my background. This is the mark of the town, as much as Signal Hill is.
Jeff Budden recognizes the heritage and cultural value of church properties, but says the Archdiocese has a bill that needs to be paid.
No one's going to buy to knock it down to put up a supermarket. That's absurd. But yes, it will be sold. Somebody will buy it.
At Corpus Christi Church, parishioners like Ian Kelly worry about the void that could result if churches and their charitable work disappear.
We had 3 baptisms here just this past Sunday. So people are still looking to the church for that particular celebration of new life in the community.
In the last months, parishioners have been trying to mount a bid to save Corpus Christi, all the while paying regular heating costs, which have spiked. 2 staff have been laid off, and in the church sanctuary, it's colder than normal.
Will we succeed? Who knows, but we're going to have a good run at it, and we'll see how we do.
25 properties are currently up for tender in the St. John's area. Hundreds of others could soon follow. A settlement ensures that cemeteries won't be sold, but everything else will be put for sale. This Mount Cashel survivor says it's unfortunate parishioners could lose their churches, but says the damage to victims was immense.
I went through only not even half of what some of those guys went through. There was abhorrent on the highest on the scale that can happen to you.
At this church, the last Easter Sunday sermon was about resurrection and rebirth. Despite parishioners' best efforts, it's still uncertain whether churches such as this one will survive. It all depends on the results of the 25 tenders, which close Thursday. Patrick Butler, CBC News, Portugal Cove.
I remember when it all started happening, we had shows on the books still for May and June and summer, and we thought, oh, that's still possible, they could happen. We had no comprehension that it could go on for 2 years.
We had a full tour booked of across Canada, and Karen said, I'm getting kind of worried about these dates coming up, and I was saying, no, it's going to be fine, that's a couple of months off, and of course that time came and we had to postpone those dates, and then Karen said, I'm kind of worried now about our Christmas tour.
During lockdowns, we weren't able to see each other.
Yeah,
and
it was weird.
I was just in our whole lives, we have never not seen each other, just about every day of our lives.
Yeah. There was something that, it just, too much time in your head, that feeling that you need a creative outlet to perform. You need your audience. You need this moment.
You need the applause. You need
the
ego.
Well, they'll soon get that applause. Just ahead, Anthony Germain speaks with the Ennis Sisters, who are celebrating an incredible 25 years of making music. They're also gearing up to go back on tour.
Well, the pandemic has had a lot of impact on so many people, but particularly musicians and artists. And joining me now are musicians who don't need much of an introduction. The Ennis Sisters are about to go on a tour. I can't believe how long it's been since I've seen you. Karen, Maureen, Teresa, it's great to see you again.
You too.
I'm going to talk about the pandemic in a bit, but it's been 25 years, a quarter century since the release of Red as the Rose. Can you believe 25 years of...
I don't know where that time went.
No. I mean, when I think back how we were so young, we were still in high school, and we had begged our father to get the CD done. We just, you know, and he put up money. His money was on the line, and he said, the only thing I ask is that you make it back for me. So we knew when we released that CD,
there was some pressure.
There was pressure. But we had this release down at the Delta and 25 years ago, and we released the CD, and you know, within 4 weeks we had sold out of 1,000 CDs. And I remember Dad, he managed us.
Yeah.
Fred's and O'Brien's and Kmart and Walmart, they were calling the house constantly. We need restock, we need restock. So Dad would be driving everywhere trying to restock, and it was such an exciting time for us. And that CD went on to sell over 50,000 copies independently, which was amazing. I mean, to think back and you know.
And we really took it for granted because we had no concept of like, you know, what do other artists do? You know, we had no concept of how this really worked because it's just something we always did for fun.
So you didn't really realize how successful it
No.
was?
No.
Because I was going to say, you guys look fantastic, and now I realize you were like kids.
We were
kids. Very young.
I mean, we still act like kids. But no, we were.
Some more than others.
We were. But we had great family support, and we had great fan support. And
I think there was something cool too to see three sisters singing.
Yeah.
And we were singing Newfoundland and Labrador music, and there was something kind of novel about it. So we didn't have to worry about work, this big booming tourist industry, and we'd get up and sing when the ships came in, or you know, whatever the situation was, any conference. And it was easier at that point and people were buying CDs at that time.
Yeah, CDs, remember those?
Yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
Our first recording came out on cassette and CD, and I remember being like, "Wow, this is coming out on CD. This is futuristic. This is really cool."
But not on 8-track.
Not on 8-track.
We just missed that wave. Yeah.
So you think back 25 years, and I've had the privilege of seeing you sing at different venues, different times, thinking of Beaumont Hamel on the 100-year anniversary, and I've interviewed you for radio and television. How do you think your music has changed over a quarter of a century?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we started in kind of a folk place, and it evolved into country pop. We've gone into all kinds of different genres, choral. I think that what I've learned is that I just have been writing what I feel I've just been inspired by in the moment, instead of ever. That was one of the hardest things I think with the Ennis Sisters, was there was no real box to put us in, because it was a mishmash of a bunch of different styles of music, and the actual sound was the 3-part harmony, Ennis Sisters. That's what made the group, the sound of the group. The music itself was we were hot AC. Went to #2 on the charts, went to country #2, CMT, all these places. The music went to these really cool places. We got to see some amazing things. But then, you know, we sang with Shalloway, and the choir was able to sing our music with us.
Toured Jan Arden too, right?
Toured with Jan Arden, toured with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I mean, the Chieftains. You know, we've had the most amazing experiences with our music, but it's never been sort of in a box to say that, you know, this is the Ennis Sisters country group. We've always leaned heavily on our Newfoundland and Labrador roots. So
and
whatever.
You've tweaked genres.
Yeah.
Right?
So wherever we kind of moved, because that was kind of where we wanted to write the music, it's always been colored by and the stories of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah.
And now you've got some new music coming out, and we'll talk about the tour in just a moment.
Yeah.
So we've looked back 25 years. I know you're going to give us a sneak peek, we hope. What's the latest?
Yeah, so actually during the pandemic, we kept ourselves very busy. We started writing for a new project, and then of course we went into the studio with Alan Doyle, and by studio I mean Alan was amazing. He went down to the inn by Mallard Cottage and he turned it into a temporary studio. And it was so much fun. I mean, to bubble up with Alan Doyle during the pandemic and spend a month, like it was madness.
So much fun, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And so that was actually, we finished recording that just about a year ago. And it's coming out now the end of June. So
Fantastic.
We're really excited about it.
You're going on tour. What are your hopes for this tour, which starts next Monday, right?
That's right.
So what are you hoping for?
It's a celebration of 25 years making music together, and we're just so excited about it, and looking back over our catalog of music and remembering, oh, that song, that was such an awesome song to do. And so just dusting off some of the old material and just all the stories that we've had over the last 25 years.
The stories alone.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stories that you forget, and then we're going through, Mom's been kind of clearing out, doing some spring cleaning, and we've been seeing pictures and old magazine covers and articles, and just kind of reliving those stories. And
Mom kept everything over the last 25 years, and it's amazing to see this incredible road trip that the three of us have been on for 25 years, and I'm hoping that it continues for another 25 years and beyond.
Right. So then we can have the Ennis Spinsters. It's great to see you again, and I wish you all the best in the tour. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
And it's all about the ebb and flow. We'll rise and fall, God only knows. So raise the sails to whatever wind blows. Oh, onward, on we go. Onward, on we go.
A report released today by the federal and provincial privacy officials say the Tim Hortons app continuously collected vast amounts of user data, even when it wasn't in use. The data could be analyzed to show where users lived or worked. Tim Hortons stopped tracking users' locations in 2020 when the investigation was launched. The report recommends the company delete any remaining location data. Tim Hortons has agreed. Well, a jury ruled into another story. A jury has ruled in favor of actor Johnny Depp in his defamation suit against his ex-wife Amber Heard and awarded Depp $15 million.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
Depp claimed Heard wrongly accused him of domestic abuse in a Washington Post op-ed and sued his ex-wife for $50 million. She countersued for $100 million. The decision vindicates Depp's stance that Heard fabricated claims that she was abused by him before and during their marriage. The jury awarded Heard $2 million for one of her counterclaims for defamation. The trial, which began on April 11th, has garnered a lot of public interest and saw both sides presenting detailed accounts of their tumultuous 5-year relationship, each accusing the other of emotional, verbal, and physical abuse. We're just one day away from the start of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations for Queen Elizabeth II in the UK. 4 days packed with pomp and pageantry to honor the monarch's historic reign. Chris Brown is in London with more on the final preparations.
It seems Britain is ready for a party that's been 70 years in the making. The bunting and banners are hung, and outside of Buckingham Palace, the stage for the Jubilee concert and pageant is ready for the performers.
Don't cut the corner.
Including a giant dragon called the Hatchling.
And go.
It's controlled by 30 puppeteers, including Mikey Brett, who also entertained the Queen at her last Jubilee a decade ago.
It's quite exciting because she loves animals and she seems to really enjoy puppetry performances, and especially things of this scale seem to really excite her.
She's the size of a double-decker bus because she's the first human-powered puppet of that size. That means she's not got a car or a crane.
The government here is giving everyone an extra long 4-day weekend to celebrate and is spending more than $40 million Canadian on festivities and thousands of street parties for what it's calling a once-in-a-generation event. A minority here, however, will not be celebrating what this critic calls a royal reality TV show.
I mean, it's a kind of a bargain basement, Kardashians, state-funded.
Graham Smith's group, Republic, is urging people to make this Jubilee the last one. These posters feature next in line Charles, his son William, but someone vandalized the photo of Prince Andrew, who's been tarnished by sexual assault allegations.
They are just going to be three very ordinary blokes who just happen to be in a very privileged position, and I think people are going to look at them and they aren't going to see someone who is royal or magical or whatever it is they might see with the Queen.
A recent poll suggests the royalty naysayers, though, are outnumbered by pro-monarchy fans 2-1. Some of them have already staked out the most prized locations to see the Queen wave to her admirers from the palace balcony on Thursday. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
We're already looking forward to the weekend and Friday's forecast. Is it going to be like a Fri-yay or a Fri-nay?
Well, the end of it actually looks like things will start to improve for some areas, which is nice.
Especially to start your weekend, yes.
Exactly, yeah. Let's take a look at what's going to happen. Now, we're expecting that rain to move through tonight and then continue through a good chunk of the morning tomorrow, but eventually we should just see those showers end. They'll likely taper to drizzle into the afternoon, but to start Friday, that area of low pressure is still offshore, which means we're going to hang on to a lot of the cloud cover, at least through the first half of the day. But the further away you get from that area of low pressure, especially by the time we get into Friday evening, it does look like some of those skies should actually clear out to top off, or to end your Friday, I should say. Still looking at a beautiful day up across much of the big land, at least through the north and the west, but coastal areas, again, still going to see that lingering cloud cover along with the potential for some drizzle. So taking a look at the temperatures on Friday, still going to stay fairly chilly for most areas, especially along the northeast coast. The further away you get from that, though, looking pretty nice, relatively speaking, from what we've been seeing for the last couple of days anyway. 12 degrees in Marystown with a mix of sun and cloud. Same thing for Port aux Basques and Corner Brook. 15 degrees in Lab City under mostly sunny skies, and then Nain, you're going to hover around the 7-degree mark. Again, hanging on to the cooler temperatures, though, the further towards the coast you go. At least further south along the coast you go. Now, as we head into Friday evening and Saturday, we're finally going to the area of low pressure should start to lose its grip. We will more than likely feature a little bit more sunshine through the day on Saturday as well, although it does look like things will stay a bit more unsettled up across the big land, especially through the day. And then more cloud cover will move in the further west you go. Now, the good news is that as that area of low pressure moves off, we should actually start to see the temperatures increasing across the province. So we're talking about 12 degrees at this point on Saturday under a mix of sun and cloud for the most part. More than likely cloudy periods with a few peaks of sun, but still much nicer than it has been most of this week. For St. John's, 14 degrees in Marystown, going to hang on to the potential for at least cloudy skies through Gander, so you're going to keep your temperature a little cooler. And then Corner Brook, you'll hover around 13 degrees. Again, temperatures coolest towards the southeast across the big land, warmest to the west. Lab City, you'll sit around 12 degrees. Now, taking a look at the longer range forecast, temperatures should climb. They may even be a bit warmer than this, but right now I have Sunday at about 10 degrees for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. And then for central Newfoundland, similar temperatures towards the west, looking much nicer, 13 to 16 degrees by the time we get into Monday. And then as far as eastern Labrador goes, you're still looking at the chance of showers through Saturday and Sunday. However, Monday looks much nicer, hovering around 17 degrees. And then western Labrador going to continue with that beautiful stretch of weather, certainly into Sunday and Monday, where your temperatures should be between 14 and 18 degrees. Take a look at this beauty. This is Glovertown at dawn. Paul Whittle shared this lovely shot with us. And if you want to send us any photos, you can send it to either my Facebook, Twitter, or email nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful. Love a nice sunrise.
I know, me too. It's the best way to start the day.
It is. Well, before we go, a preview of a couple of things that are going to be on CBC Radio. Tomorrow morning, the St. John's Morning Show with Chrissy Holmes. There it is. She'll be catching up with Amelia Curran for a chat about what it's like being behind the scenes. Her next project has her producing Labrador's Silver Wolf Band. And on CBC Radio's Newfoundland Morning tomorrow, how much would you pay for a homemade tray of jam jams? How the rising cost of food is eating up people's profits. It'll be much more exciting than that black screen. Apologies for that.
For sure.
Lots of interesting things on the radio, and of course lots of interesting things for on Here and Now for the rest of the week. It's you and me. Carolyn's out on assignment this week, working on a couple of great stories that she'll have for you in the coming weeks on Here Now.
That's right.
And that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching.
Good night.